Hi everyone, welcome to my green closet. Today I'm going to be sharing some of the mistakes that I've made while trying to live a more sustainable lifestyle because I'm not perfect, none of us are, and maybe some of you have made these mistakes too, or maybe you're currently making them, and that's okay. This is an opportunity to learn more. There really is no right approach to reducing your impact, but what is something that we should all be doing is being open to learning and trying new things and finding those areas where you can make positive changes. And this video is kindly sponsored by Betterhelp. I have had such a great experience using their services and having someone to talk to about not only my personal problems, but also dealing with things like eco-anxiety, which I'm gonna get into more in a bit because I definitely made the mistake of not recognizing it and dealing with it. And I'll also share more about Betterhelp and how it's really helped me. So the first mistake, which I have definitely done, and also one that I see a lot, is trying to do too much and focusing too much on our failures. And this is a common one because for many of us, when we learn about how terrible something is, we want to stop contributing to that. However, we can't just overhaul our lives overnight. We need to make changes that we're able to handle and maintain. And even though that feels so much less satisfying than making a massive shift, taking things one step at a time is so much more likely to result in forming habits and long-lasting changes instead of feeling overwhelmed and like it's impossible to do better. We always have to remember that we're operating within a very flawed and broken system. We have limited options and there are no perfect solutions. I see this all the time where we focus far too much on the things that we can't do and our fails instead of looking at what we can do and the opportunities and celebrating our successes. Just yesterday, I got a comment from someone about how guilty and awful they felt having a phone and computer, knowing how bad electronics are. And I often see similar comments from people about how they feel terrible having fast fashion in their closet or about needing to buy plastic packaging, but I think that focus needs to shift. So maybe you need a phone. Instead of thinking about how terrible it is, try to think about ways that you can make a more sustainable and responsible choice. So maybe things like buying secondhand, buying refurbished electronics, looking for models that can easily be repaired or replaced. If we focus too much on the issues and the guilt or trying to fix everything, it doesn't give us the mental space to problem solve and to be open to realistic solutions and finding the steps that we can take. And the next big mistake I made is not recognizing and managing my eco-anxiety. Eco-anxiety is a newer term, but it is a very real thing, and it is the persistent fear about the future of our planet. And it can cause things like depression, anger, feelings of guilt and shame, panic, anxiety, obsessive thoughts, existential dread, and more. Mental health is extremely important, and trying to process things like the climate crisis can really affect our mental health. I made the mistake of not recognizing when I needed to take a step back or to take a break, or when I wasn't in the right mental space to handle learning about something, or when I could use help. For a long time, I really lived in my own head about this, and it actually wasn't until I heard other people talk about experiencing eco-anxiety that I was even able to recognize what I was feeling. And even though I initially started therapy for other reasons, it has been so helpful to have somebody to talk to and to have tools to understand and help handle my thoughts and feelings. And I have another video which I will link below of my top tip and the mental trick that I use to help deal with my eco-anxiety. But it's really important to know that you are not alone with these thoughts and feelings and to get help if needed. I, for the longest time, thought that my issues weren't serious enough to seek help, but after using Betterhelp and having a counselor to talk to, I really do think that everyone can benefit from therapy. So now I want to quickly talk about Betterhelp. If there is anything at all interfering with your life, your goals, your relationships, your happiness, it can be so beneficial to talk to a professional. And this past year has been incredibly difficult for so many of us. Both my husband and I started therapy this past year and wish that we'd done it sooner. I so appreciate Betterhelp sponsoring this video. I only work with brands that I use and love, and I've gotten a lot out of their service. Betterhelp assesses your needs and matches you with a licensed professional therapist who you can start communicating with within 48 hours. To be clear though, it is not a crisis line, it is not self-help, it is professional counseling done securely online. I personally felt the assessment and matching was quite good at picking somebody with experience in the areas I needed, and Betterhelp has over 15,000 counselors in their network and expertise which may not be locally available to you. The service is available worldwide, and Betterhelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so it's easy and free to change counselors if you find your match isn't a good fit. I really appreciate that you can have weekly phone or video sessions from the comfort of your home. I don't have to go in anywhere, there's no sitting in a waiting room, and you can also send messages and get responses from your counselor even outside of your scheduled sessions. It is also more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. I was honestly shocked when I looked into the prices of local counseling options because it's not covered by my healthcare. So BetterHelp is not only more convenient, but also more affordable. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit betterhelp.com/greencloset, that's BetterHelp, and join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. And there's a special offer for My Green Closet viewers. You can get 10% off your first month if you go to betterhelp.com/greencloset. So you know that phrase, to care for others, you need to take care of yourself first, or something like that? Well, I also think it's true that you can't effectively care for the planet and be a good role model environmentalist if you don't take care of yourself. So the next big mistake, which I've made, and I think a lot of people make, is finding a balance regarding greenwashing. So this mistake can go either way, and at different times I've been both too ignorant of greenwashing tricks and also too skeptical. There is a sweet spot in the middle of having knowledge of greenwashing and knowing some things to look out for and some red flags to pay attention to, but also not being overly critical and thinking that every brand and everyone is out there to trick you and picking apart every tiny thing. Greenwashing is definitely an issue to be aware of, but we also have to remember that no brand is perfect, and especially when it comes to small businesses versus huge corporations, which I definitely do have higher standards for. But with small businesses, they often have very small teams and limited resources, and so just because every I might not be dotted, that doesn't mean that they're disingenuous or that they're greenwashing. So I think be aware that this happens, research brands, look for red flags, but also don't assume that everyone is greenwashing. There are some fantastic brands out there who are definitely not perfect, but still really deserving of support. So the next one is relying too much on data. This is a big mistake that I've made. While I think data and stats are very useful for understanding the scope of things and for comparing things, what I've learned over all these years of researching is that the data is often a lot more complicated than the headline or the sentence that we might see. Most things are much more nuanced, and unfortunately, a lot of the flaws and holes in data are often not clearly identified. Quite a bit of research is funded by corporations who are looking for a specific outcome. And when it comes to things like sustainability or the fashion industry, there are so many things that we just don't have data and studies on, so it becomes extremely difficult to draw comparisons or make conclusions. And this is not to discount the research that is being done and the reports that are available. This is all extremely important and we need more of it. But I do know that it's easy to fall into the trap of hearing one piece of data or reading one summary of a study and taking that as a universal fact. Fashion being the second most polluting industry in the world is a great example of this. This stat was used everywhere and is still being used, even though it's been debunked and there is no traceable source for this. The fashion industry is so huge and complex that there is really no way to properly quantify its overall impact. But just because we don't have the data points doesn't mean that it's not a huge problem. And on the flip side, when we do have data, that doesn't mean that it's the whole picture. For example, impact and life cycle analysis can be really tricky because most of them just look at carbon footprint, but there are so many other aspects. Microplastics, for example, is a big one, and we really have no idea what the greater environmental impact of them is. So while data is of course helpful, we also have to remember that there is just a lot of data and information that we just don't have. The next mistake is ignoring the larger picture. The more I've gotten into this, the more I've realized the importance of both bottom-up and top-down approaches. It really is the only way that I can see us making significant changes. When I started this journey, I was so focused on my own actions and what I was doing and what I was buying. And while it is of course important and it is a piece of the puzzle, we also have to try to have our voices heard by our governments. We can't shop our way to a better earth, and we need better policies and regulations and systemic changes. And the best way that we as individuals can help with that is by getting involved and speaking out. This can include so many different things: voting, writing letters to your representatives, protesting, getting involved in campaigns, spreading awareness. Social media is an incredible tool, donating to advocacy groups and organizations, and so much more. And I'm not saying you have to do all of these. Find the things and ways to communicate that work best for you and your personality and skill set and lifestyle. But do try to look beyond just day-to-day actions to ways that you can maybe help influence greater change. So those are some of the mistakes that I made on my sustainability journey, but mistakes are learning experiences and they've helped me learn a lot. I'd love to know if you're open to sharing, if you've also made some of these mistakes, or if there are any others that you'd add. And thank you again to Betterhelp for sponsoring this video. You can check out their services and get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/greencloset. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.